it's informative to sort of go through the life cycle of a development project, because at the beginning, usually you have to do the rezoning. So you have to do all the planning, you have to go through city council, it's expensive. So the fact that you don't have to do that for up to 3 units is a big win. So that allows you to get to construction faster, cheaper, and allows you to build more. The second thing is development fees. Once you've gone through that rezoning process, and the city says, okay, you can build your triplex. Now you have to pay development fees per door. It's the same on the Quebec side as well. It's the same down in the US. In Ottawa, I think it's about $40,000 per door that you have to pay the city for the privilege to put a shovel in the ground. So if in Rockland, we're in yeah.
We don't have that in Quebec. Hello, and welcome back to the Very Real Estate Effect podcast, a show dedicated to real estate investing right here in Quebec. And today we have a wonderful guest, Brad Cartier, who's actually based in Ottawa, but hey, that's okay because he's got extremely relevant experience. So hi, Brad, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Axel.
So before we jump into it, I just want to remind everyone, thank you for your continued support. Please leave us a review, thumbs up if you're listening on Spotify and iTunes. I think there's like 3 little dots in the upper left corner. Subscribe to the show, share it with a friend who could benefit from this conversation. Today's going to be a really fun one. I'm excited to have Brad because he's got lots to share. So Brad is the co-founder of Blair Capital, which invests in the missing middle, and I can't wait. So what's the missing middle?
So the missing middle refers to low-rise multifamily. It's anything from a duplex all the way up to, there's varying definitions, but 16 units. So 4-plex, 6-plex, low-rise multifamily, courtyard apartments, just anything that isn't that single-family home or that high-rise apartment building. And what really happened, and the reason they call it the missing middle is because we are woefully lacking in that kind of supply of rental housing in North America. In Europe, they have plenty of it. If you go to any European capital, these beautiful low-rise townhomes and rentals and all that kind of stuff. But here in North America, after World War II, we really emphasized, with the advent of the automobile, we emphasized sort of the suburbs. So it was that cookie cutter McMansion type setup, or the downtown high rise. And if you look at a lot of North American cities, you'll see that juxtaposition, the sprawling suburbs or sort of the glass towers in the downtown core. So we've really neglected the missing middle, and it's a really important piece of fabric to our housing composition. And it's one of the reasons we actually have a lack of affordable housing across North America, not just in Canada.
Mm-hmm, for sure. And it's funny because I feel like not that long ago, I actually learned that term. And I know in the Quebec market in Montreal, we actually have a fair amount of it. But I understand that in Ontario, or not to pick on Ontario, but like Ottawa, Toronto, there's, as you said, a huge gap because you go from single family homes to the high rises. And here it's common to have the duplex, the triplex, 5, 6, 8-plex, 3-floor. Sometimes there's some semi-basement units and stuff like that. So demand, I guess, for your product of your development company must be high. Why do you like that missing middle so much?
Well, it answers a number of fundamental consumer demands. There's a lot of people who, as you know, with rising interest rates and, housing prices in Canada have gone up, 60% over the last 5 years. So affordability is a real big challenge. So it's forcing a lot of people into rentals, but they don't necessarily want to rent a big single family home. And there's really not that many on the rental market, or they don't want to live, 20 floors up in a little shoebox. Mm-hmm. So they're looking for that product that gives them the walkability, that still feels like their own property, but then they have a little bit of space, but isn't sort of one of those two options. And I mean, that's sort of the consumer side of it. On a regulatory side, I think given the interest rate environment that we're in, given the position we put ourselves as a society, we can't provide enough housing for our citizens. There's a strong regulatory push on the political side, whether it's municipal, provincial, or federal, to increase the supply of housing. And finally, decision makers are wising up to the fact that the only way we're going to solve our housing crisis isn't by these, demand side tactics of, foreign buyer taxes or stress tests or anything like that. Like it's very simple supply and demand. If you want to help out our citizenry with housing, increase supply. So
Build more.
and yeah, exactly. And
Mm.
yeah, and you're absolutely right on the in Montreal, because of the European influence, you see a lot of that missing middle housing that's already there. And we can take some pointers from you guys over here in Ontario. But I'm not a political guy, rightly or wrongly, whether you like Doug Ford or not, but his government passed Bill 23, which essentially upzoned the entire province to allow up to 4 units, generally speaking. There are some exceptions on any R1 lot, and we're seeing this across. BC is looking to implement this as we speak. California has already implemented. A bunch of states in the U.S. are, and what that does is it's really going to that missing middle segment of housing, because without having to go through expensive rezoning or site plan amendments and all that nonsense that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And I know it because we're a developer. Now the regulatory environment is such that it's trying to enable that light densification of our cities across North America.
And so, first of all, that's a great news for the law that was passed. And so, just to understand, because I'm not very familiar, is that now on any lots that used to have a single family home, you can do 4 units?
Yes, 3 units for sure, and depends on where you are and what the setbacks are. You still have to adhere to setbacks
Yeah.
and building code. However, now by right, you are legally allowed to build up to 3 units for sure on any R1 lot in Ontario.
Okay. So, as you said, that in terms of increasing the density, that's a great move. First of all, when was that law passed, and what was the impact for you on the projects that you're working on?
Yeah, for sure. So it was passed earlier in the year. I think it was January, February. The immediate effect. So really the law that passed accomplished three things. It essentially upzoned the province to up to 3 units. It reduced development fees. So and it's good. It's informative to sort of go through the life cycle of a development project, because at the beginning, usually you have to do the rezoning. So you have to do
Yeah.
all the planning. You have to go through city council. It's expensive. So the fact that you don't have to do that for up to 3 units is a big win. So that allows you to get to construction faster, cheaper, and allows you to build more. The second thing is development fees. Once you've gone through that rezoning process, and the city says, okay, you can build your triplex. Now you have to pay development fees per door. It's the same on the Quebec side as well. It's the same down in the US. So in Ottawa, I think it's about $40,000 per door that you have to pay the city for the privilege to put a shovel in the ground. So if in Rockland,
What?
we're in yeah,
We
in
don't
Ottawa.
have that in Quebec.
No?
No.
Oh,
We
well,
have.
it might be called something differently,
Wow. Okay.
but anyway, in Toronto, it's
Mhm.
upwards of $80,000 per door. Where I live, sort of east of Ottawa, more towards Montreal, it's $20,000 per door as a development fee. So these development fees, I like. You understand that the municipality needs to increase services, but essentially what developers are doing is they're taking either vacant land or underutilized land and building up the tax base there. Like
Yeah.
when we built a sixplex, the city was getting a couple $1,000 a month or a year from the tax base. Now they're going to get a lot more. So
Yeah.
the city's sort of collecting on two ends there. So what the province said is that by default, all municipalities in Ontario have to reduce their development fees by 20%. And in some cases, they had to reduce them by upwards of 40 or 50% if you were building more affordable type housing stock. So
Mhm.
that was the second aspect of the legislation that really helped with construction. And the third part of the legislation that really helped as well is that anything below 10 units, you didn't have to go through what's called site plan development, which requires different studies, which cost a lot of money and delays and things like that. So immediately the projects we had under construction, we got a letter from the city saying, these requirements that we said were requirements are no longer requirements, so we could move ahead. So there was an immediate benefit to developers in Ontario, including ourselves. Not to mention the fact that we don't have to rezone under most circumstances now,
Yeah.
and development fees are reduced.
That's all great news. You must have been very happy.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, the bill itself caused some debate because it also stripped municipalities of a lot of environmental authority, which I don't necessarily agree with. But at least on the construction side, it's like I said before, it's dead simple. If you want to
Yeah.
improve affordability, if you want to reduce rents, if you want to reduce housing prices, you have to build more.
Yeah, increased supply. No, absolutely. You're absolutely right that it's very basic economics. So now you're one of the co-founders of Blair Capital. Can you just kind of describe what does the company do, who are the founders, and what kind of projects are you working on?
Yeah, for sure. So thanks for the opportunity. I have two other co-founders, and we formed about 10 years ago what we like to call a vertically integrated real estate company. So what we do is I'm on the acquisition side, and I have other partners who are on the property management side and the construction side. So from acquisition to planning through rezoning and permits to construction to long-term property management, we do all that in-house. So we source our own properties, we bring on our own investors, and then we manage the assets long term. And we only do missing middle multifamily in secondary and tertiary markets around the Ottawa area. And we chose that particular product for specific reasons. But that's kind of that's what we do.
Yeah. And is it correct to say that you find it a lot easier to work with some of those smaller municipalities that actually want development instead of focusing with Ottawa, build downtown, where it takes 3 years to get anything done?
Yeah. I'm not sure how it is in Montreal, but the big cities can be a bit of a black hole when it comes to even if you have basic questions. Whereas in more smaller communities, the town really wants development, and
Yeah.
you're building new housing stock. So for them, and improving their tax base. So for them, it's a win-win. So yeah, we've had really good relationships with the municipalities around here, and that's one of the main reasons why we like to do what we do.
Okay. And so currently right now, can you describe like some of the projects that you have? Like what are you building?
Yeah, so we just finished a 16 unit in a little town called Emblem. That's been stabilized now for about 18 months. We had to build that during COVID, which was a whole nother issue.
Mm-hmm.
But finally got that to the finish line. We're currently working on a 6 and 5-plex in downtown Rockland, which is also a community east of Ottawa. And then we have 2 8 units coming online as well in Rockland. And we're working to acquire some other land in similar communities around here to build up some more missing middle multifamily. And we chose the small communities for a very deliberate reason. It's mainly twofold. One, the cost of acquisition was about a
Yeah.
third of what it is in the city. But the rents were actually very comparable, and that's because vacancy rates are almost zero in these small towns because there's no
Mhm.
purpose-built rentals, and the purpose-built rentals that are there are crap.
Are old, decrepit, haven't been renovated in 30 years. Yeah, we know the we know the
Yeah,
drill
you know
here.
the story. Yeah,
Yeah.
so we found a really good niche in these small towns. So
Yeah.
that's something that we're looking to continue. We don't. I have a lot of developer friends who are in Ottawa or in Toronto, and that's great for them. But our model is really focusing on the smaller markets.
Yeah, no, and you're absolutely right. And we're kind of seeing the same thing here in Quebec and around Montreal. I mean, you can drive an hour out of the city and rents are actually fairly comparable. But yet the cost of construction, the delays in execution are half. Well, not the
Yeah.
construction cost. Construction cost is more or less similar. It's just that the mobilization, and you don't have to pay to rent out the parking spots in front of the property that's in construction, and so on and so forth. And execution wise, I mean, in Montreal now, a building permit for a new construction is a year to 18 months. So if you can go work in a city where you can have a permit in 3 months and you actually email them on a Monday and get answers on a Tuesday, it's a delight.
Yeah, exactly. And we've gotten permits in any 3 to 4 months for some of our builds. We've gone through rezoning process in 10 months
Yeah.
versus I know people have taken 2 to 3 years in some of the bigger cities. So
Yeah.
it's just a different model, and our cap rates are not as good as they would be in the city, but our cost to build is lower and our cost of acquisition is lower. So sometimes we actually come out more ahead than some of my friends in the bigger cities.
Yeah, and you're able to do two projects while they only did one.
Exactly.
Yeah. And when you say the cap rates may be a little different, like for your stabilized a 16 unit, for example, what are we looking at?
Um, I'd have to double check because the market, as you know, is fluctuating very quickly with the rise in interest rates and
Hmm.
decreased NOIs. But I think the last one we were at about a 6 or 6.5.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then so you're structured, you said you have two other partners. You focus on the acquisition. One is the construction, the other one is the property management. Now, those deals, do you resell or you guys keep in-house at Blair Capital?
So all those projects we keep in house. We have had
Mhm.
some requests for resale once we're complete, but we really want to, we build these for ourselves and we really
Yeah.
want to maintain them on the back end. So yeah, no, and I should clarify, I have two partners, and the one does all the financing, and the other one does property management. We do have a construction partner, so all of the
Okay.
builds that we do, we actually partner with the builder, who's an equity holder in the holdco of the property.
Okay.
So it's kind of like a fourth partner, but yeah, it's pretty similar to what you said. But in partnering with the builder, we also get we get cheaper rates on the construction. We get
Oh
the
yeah.
material discount. There's no lift that a typical builder would get, but the builder at the end, once we do the refinance, we'll get that lift from the refinance, and also now holds equity in the property for forever that we're going to manage on their behalf and send them quarterly
Yeah.
dividends.
No, for them, and they're really from a quality of the build, they really do have the incentive to go that extra step and not cut corners. I'm not saying they would, but just when you think long term and you're going to be the one who's going to get called if something goes wrong, the incentives are property aligned.
100%.
No, that's great. And now we had by the way, congratulations with everything that you've described, like doing some development myself. I do know the difficulty um it takes, literally. So good job on everything that you achieved. And we had met because a friend, Uriel Bigot, not to name him, a little while ago had said, oh, my friend is doing this newsletter with some articles, and I'll sign you up. And I've been getting it ever since, pretty much. And so can you tell us, it's called Briefcase?
Yeah, so I also do a lot of marketing work on the prop tech side with some companies down in San Francisco and here in Canada as a consultant. So I've always been a writer. I've always been a marketer. That's my area of expertise. So I've written for a number of different outlets, and I still do a little bit of it. But a couple of years ago, I decided to branch out and do my own newsletter because I wanted to write my own voice and tone, and under my own terms, so to speak. But yeah, so Briefcase is a free weekly newsletter. We have a couple issues a week, whether it's news or a deep dive on a particular topic or takeover editions from some of our partners. And it all relates generally to residential real estate investing. So we have 40,000 subscribers now. We have really great engagement, really good topics too that I write on a weekly basis. The last one we wrote was about the Netherlands banning landlords and sort of the outcomes of the
Oh
unintended
yeah.
the
Yeah, yeah,
unintended.
yeah. I read that one. It was really interesting, actually.
Yeah. So and they're all on our website, briefcase.email, if anyone wants to read any of the previous issues. But yeah, that was a really interesting one to write. It was very left wing policy that we got to ban the big bad landlords, and they actually found that after they did that in the major cities, that rents actually went up and poor people couldn't live in the cities. So
Hmm.
it was completely counterproductive to what
Yeah.
they had intended. But I
I,
love I love I love researching about topics like that and writing about them in Briefcase.
yeah, exactly. And you know what? Props, props to you for that, because I find it super interesting when we get to see what are other people doing? How are other countries handling this problem? And when you look at the policies in Europe, I don't want to say they have more experience, but they've tried different things. And in North America, we're very, well, I was going to say liberal and market oriented. I guess maybe not in Quebec and Montreal. I shouldn't say that too loud, but it's always interesting to bring in, hey, what are other experiences? I had read like that a very good article about the housing policy in Vienna and how, and I don't remember if it was in Briefcase or in another newspaper. Where was it? Anyways, so again, thanks to you for writing about this and sharing it, because it always brings something new that we need to be more accustomed to.
Yeah, and I think now is such an interesting time with rising rates and what's going on with the banks in the U.S. and this push housing supply in Canada in particular, because we have, massive immigration, and, but we're not building enough. So the topics to write about, the list keeps growing. So I just pick the most interesting one each week and write about it. And the feedback's been great. The growth has been great. And it's all free. We don't have advertisers yet or anything like that. It's just sort of a passion project.
Nice. And so you started that what, like 3 years ago?
Yeah, I think 2.5 years ago. I think we're on issue 133 or 34, and I've been doing it every week.
Wow, it's actually very similar to the podcast because I think we're at episode like 140 something. So like roughly fall 2020. That's really fun. Now, what for anyone who's listening, if they want to sign up, how should they go about it?
Yeah, just go to briefcase.email and sign up, and you can read previous issues there. And yeah, I like I said, I write each email. So if you respond to any of the emails, I get it directly in my inbox, and I love hearing feedback and getting content ideas from the readers. So yeah, don't hesitate.
No, that's good to know, and hopefully you get a few people sign up. And I'm saying this as because I have been subscribed for over 2 years now, and to be totally transparent, like I don't read all of them, but there's some that I read, and I found they're very interesting. So again, thank you for doing this. It can only raise the level of education, real estate education. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing you're doing here, Axel. I'm very passionate about good education, not necessarily the snake oil sometimes we see out there in the real estate world where it's get rich quick.
Mhm.
So this is sort of just a way to give back and create discussion around, like, nothing's more important than people having roofs over their heads. So I think it's a really important discussion for us to be having, and sort of cut through some of the political noise that we see in the media, and getting down to the facts and the data, and
Yeah.
what does sensible housing policy actually look like.
And and thank you for bringing this up because in the media it's not mentioned nearly enough. The level of commitment to I still consider both you and I some mom and pop investors because yeah, we're a small firm and stuff, but we're not building high rises, and we've and yes, we've gone professional, but now we're still small. The level of commitment there is from people like us, and I would love to be able to build 500 units a year, and I think I could. Is just okay, one, it takes more capital, and that's one part of the issue, but the execution, I don't want to call it the red tape, but the administrative process is so long and complicated. And yet, I don't know, here in Quebec, when you read the newspapers, it's always like, oh, poor tenants, and they have to live in horrible conditions, and their rent control and all this. But we need to expose every facet of the industry. And again, like I'm not drinking a glass of wine, but if I was, I would raise my glass to people like you who take the initiative. And yes, it's for profit, but you're still increasing the housing supply one building at a time. And every time you have new families that move in, and that needs to be shared. And that's why I'm very passionate about real estate investing. I'm an immigrant, and now I'm making it my mission to build more housing for immigrants because this wonderful country needs it.
100% agree. I couldn't agree more. I got chills when you said that, and I think, yeah, there's so much to say about what you just said, but like just off the top, it's unfortunately there's a few bad landlords out there that give us all a really bad name, and for good reason. There's some people who treat tenants very, very poorly and
Yeah.
criminally. So I think it's up to all of us, the good ones, to raise the bar and change the discussion around sort of the greedy landlords to the housing providers, because that's essentially what we're providing, and to sort of fight the red tape. There's a very interesting, down in the U.S., the National Multi-Housing Council released a report on the costs that go into development for developers in the U.S. And actually, I think it's probably worse in Canada, but down in the U.S., 40% of a developer's costs go to fees and taxes. That's not the building. That's not the structure. That's not the actual physical asset.
It's
That's
crazy.
and it's the same here. Like I mentioned, our sixplex. So we had to acquire the land in cash. We spent about $100,000 on soft costs for the 6 unit. Then about another 120,000 for those development fees, and it's like you're almost at $500,000 before you even put shovels in the ground and built
Yeah.
the darn thing. So I think there was a really good podcast. It was a couple weeks ago, the Canadian Real Estate Investor podcast,
Yeah.
where they talked about the report of who earns the most from new housing, and I forget which agency did the report, but developers were about fourth on the list of who make the most money from new development. It was governments who actually earn three times more than developers.
Yeah.
So it's not to say that governments, local, provincial, and federal, can't win from housing. They should earn. They provide infrastructure services and healthcare and everything. Why we love Canada, absolutely. But should they be earning three times more than the actual people on the ground taking the risk to build the housing when we need housing so badly in this country? It's that's my mission in life, is to sort of to keep fighting that good fight and keep giving housing providers a good name, the good ones at least.
Yeah, no, exactly. I couldn't agree more, and I'm happy there's people like you and I who still take the time to communicate and to share our experience, because it's not always glorious. It's actually often quite difficult and discouraging, but yet we still pull through. So Brad, if anyone wants to find out more about you and Blair Capital, what's the best way to get in touch?
Yeah, it's Brad Cartier on LinkedIn or briefcase.email. Like I said, I write all the emails, so just respond to that and happy to chat. I'm obviously passionate about this, just like you, Axel. So happy to chat anytime with anyone about anything real estate related.
Sounds good. And to anyone listening, seriously, go sign up for the newsletter. It's really good. And if you don't like it, unsubscribe after 2 months and no harms. But I guarantee you that you'll learn some stuff and it'll open your perspective. So it's briefcase.email. There we go. Brad, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you very much for your time today and sharing your knowledge, experience, and story.
Thanks for having me, Axel. Appreciate it.
And to everyone listening, as usual, share this episode with a friend. It'll help us reach more people, and keep researching your market, make some offers, and I'll talk to you next week. Thank you.